The Yenching Academy at Peking University is a 2-year, fully funded master's program in China Studies that benefits from the wealth of support, faculty and administrative support at Peking University. Peking University is the oldest and most respected institution of higher education in China, founded in 1898 under the leadership of the Guangxu Emperor of the Qing Dynasty in what was known as the 100 Days of Reform. Although the 100 Days of Reform ended up being more or less a failed reform movement, one of the lasting legacies was the founding of Jingzhi Daxuetang, Imperial University of Peking, the precursor to Peking University. You can see on the right here a bird's eye view of our campus on a lovely clear day where you can see the Western Mountains north and west of Beijing. We're located in the outside of the northwestern 4th Ring Road. So if you're familiar with Beijing at all, that's the University District, very close to Zhongguancun, the high-tech area, and sort of on the edge of Wudaokou, the major university district in Beijing. Show you some of the beautiful shots of our campus in different seasons. We are entering fall, which is always, in my opinion, the most pleasant time of year. Temperatures are nice, the foliage is beautiful, and it hasn't yet gotten cold. More beautiful shots of our campus. Peking University used to be part of an imperial summer palace under the Qing Dynasty in the northwestern portion of the city. So a lot of the architecture here is quite reminiscent of Chinese imperial architecture. It is a very special and beautiful place to live, work, and study. Jingyuan, the Jingyuan Courtyard, is a historically significant portion of the campus where the Yenching Academy has our administration building in courtyard number 3 and our teaching building in courtyard number 4. We also have our multimedia large lecture halls. It's a really a lovely place. And we have a dear mascot, Fengzhua, who the orange tabby cat pictured there, who lives in our courtyard and has become something of a minor celebrity here. So Peking University itself has over 46,000 full-time students and around 4,300 international students. These students are supported by over 11,000 faculty members and a very professional staff, administrative staff in different departments and schools. We have 51 different departments and schools, as well as 10 national key laboratories here at this university. So what is the Yenching Academy of Peking University? We are a fully funded 2-year master's program in China Studies. We are a residential college program. That means that all first-year Yenching scholars live on campus together in the Yenching Academy House dormitory. We explore China's changing role in the world, historically, contemporary times, and looking to the future. Having run the admissions program here at YCA for several years now, as well as being fortunate enough to teach quite a few Yenching scholars in my history courses, I personally attest to the fact that this program is a magnet for outstanding young scholars and future leaders. And we're involved in an interesting experiment of bringing best practices of international graduate education to the already fully formed system of higher education here in mainland China. We're also interested in defining what it means to study China in China. I'll tell you a little bit more about how our curriculum and our degrees are structured coming up in a minute. Now, this last point here, a catalyst for international dialogue, admittedly sounds like the most obvious of the talking points here, but it's not disingenuous. I think that you will hear Sarah and Claudia attest, and I personally can as well, that when you're in classrooms, in dormitories, on campuses, on campus with like-minded scholars from around the world, different cultures, different backgrounds, but all with a shared interest in better understanding contemporary China, you will really find that classroom discussions, classroom debates, coffee, meals, hanging out with your colleagues does actually really spark international dialogue. So YCA is fully funded, but what does that mean? All scholars in their first year will be guaranteed 12-month full fellowship, but we also reserve the right, since we're making such a large investment in individual Yenching scholars, but when you add up the fact that we have roughly 120 scholars in 2 classes each year, so about 240, 250 scholars, it's a large collective investment. And so you should consider this a fully funded 2-year program with an academic performance review at the end of your first year. We have some very clearly defined performance standards in the classroom that all Yenching scholars must meet. You must complete a certain number of course credits. You can't fail any of your required courses or core curriculum, and you must maintain a certain GPA. If you meet those standards, you apply for the second year fellowship, and as long as you meet those standards, you will receive it. The language of administration and of education at the Yenching Academy is English. Now, since we are a China Studies program in China with a significant number of mainland Chinese students, as well as heritage Chinese speakers from all around the world, you will have many opportunities to speak and practice your conversational Chinese, but we are officially taught in English. We are an interdisciplinary program, so although today's information session is focusing on history and archaeology, you are free to take courses and encouraged to take courses in any of our electives, regardless of the categorization of which research area they might be focused on. And we encourage students to take courses outside of the Yenching Academy in other departments and schools around campus. Now, for most international students, that will probably mean taking English taught courses, say at maybe the Guanghua School of Management or the School of International Studies here at PKU. But you can audit courses in Chinese, and if you have an HSK level 6 with a test report that was completed within the last 2 years, you can place out of our mandatory Chinese language program, but you still have to fulfill the same number of academic credits, and we encourage you to do so with content courses taught in Chinese. So the Yenching Fellowship covers tuition. It covers accommodation in the first year in the Yenching Academy House. Housing for international students can be in the Yenching Academy House for second year, or international students can choose to live off campus in an apartment in Beijing, generally with other Yenching scholars in their second year. If that is the choice of an international Yenching scholar, then they will be offered with a housing stipend, 3,000 renminbi a month for the second year. It'll be enough to cover a individual bedroom in a shared apartment, but probably not enough to cover a solo apartment on your own. Housing prices in Beijing are not that cheap. You have a monthly stipend for living expenses for 3,000 renminbi per month. You have a stipend for 1 round trip travel in your first year from your home destination to and from Beijing. And then you have basic medical insurance. This is an insurance program, insurance package that's specifically designed for international students living and studying in China. There are other funding opportunities available. In the first year, you have our flagship funding opportunity is the Dean's Research Grant. We've funded on a competitive basis. 1 or more Yenching scholars form a research team. They write a formal research proposal to us. And if we think it is interesting, if we think that it can make a potential contribution to the field and it is practical, then we will fund independent research under the Dean's Research Grant. And in second year, we offer teaching assistantships, research assistantships, residential assistantships as well. We also fund extra language study in the second year for a limited number of Yenching scholars, also on a competitive basis. So these 6 research areas are very important to your academic experience here at the Yenching Academy. We're going to be focusing mainly on history and archaeology today, but I think it's important to get a sense of how we've designed it and why we've designed the program as we have. China Studies is not yet it's not what's called a tier 1 academic discipline in China. Peking University worked creatively within the regulations of China's Ministry of Education to define China Studies while fitting it into the previously determined degree system here in China. So on your diploma, once you graduate, it'll say Peking University, Master of Economics, then China Studies Economics and Management, or Peking University, Master of History, then China Studies History and Archaeology. If you know a little bit about the history of the disciplines of sinology and China studies, I think this is could be effectively described as the approach that became popular in the mid-20th century, studying China within the disciplines. So we're integrating a sort of sinological focus on China as much as possible in its totality, while using interdisciplinary research methods that are based in the humanities and social sciences. So this research area, history and archaeology, if that's what you end up applying for, will be important in three ways to your academic experience. The application stage. You need to apply to one of the research concentrations in the application form. And we will then be evaluating your academic record, the courses you've taken, your research proposal, etc., with an eye to, can this student effectively conduct China studies-based research in history and archaeology at the graduate level with some of the smartest graduate students, not only in China, but in the world. So the application stage, you want to be strategic about which research area you choose. Now, you also want to be interested in your research topic and interested in the research concentration. But let's say you are an economics major in undergrad and have not really taken many history courses, but you're applying to history and archaeology. Well, that I won't say that will raise some red flags, but be aware that we'll say, okay, that's interesting move from economics to history and archaeology. What history courses has this applicant taken? What China studies courses have they taken? Do they have the experience in social scientific and historical research methodology to give them a good chance of success? Now, if you have this background, economics going into history and archaeology, and you're interested in doing an economic history research project, well, then that makes a lot more sense. So just think about, we want to be able to see a clear path, an understandable narrative from your academic performance and training in undergrad or perhaps another master's program to what you want to study here with us for your research and what you're interested in learning about China to where you hope to go in your career. That's good advice for not only applying to the Yenching Academy, it's also good advice for applying to any graduate program. In the upper left, you'll see the four core courses that all Yenching scholars will take in their first year. And I want to emphasize, Yenching scholars complete all of their coursework in the first year. The second year is left for designing, conducting, and writing their master's thesis research project, as well as perhaps some research internships or things of that nature. China in Transition 1 and 2 is a year-long 2-semester course that takes interdisciplinary approaches to the understanding of contemporary China and China more or less since the reform and opening period of the last 4 decades or so. The first semester is structured in, it's co-taught by leading faculty from different schools and departments around the university. There will be a large lecture and then smaller discussion sections that follow right afterwards. China in Transition 2 breaks down into smaller courses where you pick the second semester part of the course based on the individual professor's research profile and your own developing research interests. China in Transition 2 digs down more deeply into one area of academic inquiry and is focused on field research. We have a field study, generally in the fall semester, where we take all first-year Yenching scholars to a different city or region outside of Beijing. It is a serious academic course, but it is also taking the learning experience outside of the classroom. Hello, Claudia. For the last several years, we've been taking students to Chengdu and Chongqing. Chengdu in Sichuan and Chongqing, a central government, sort of a city that's so large it's become, in essence, its own province. The Topics in China Studies lecture series, we bring in leading scholars, business leaders, diplomats from the field broadly defined as China Studies, and they come in and give a lecture on a topic of interest and their experience, and then have a discussion with the Yenching scholars. And then academic writing is a year-long seminar where we bring in different PKU faculty members to give our students step-by-step guidance and different aspects of the graduate level research and writing process, from conceptualizing a research topic, different methodologies to use, drafting your paper, etc. All international students, unless they have an HSK level 6 taken within the last 2 years, are required to take Chinese language courses in their first year. And for native Chinese speakers, they are required to take a second foreign language as well. And we also have some general elective courses that are available for those who want to strengthen perhaps some of their social scientific research methodologies. Now, I have 2 slides here to show you the elective courses that are offered by Yenching Academy. This is not the courses that are offered by Peking University. There are others. You will have to, should you be accepted, look at the course catalog when you arrive. And I want to emphasize, although you can see here, we have history and archaeology, philosophy and religion, literature and culture, and then here, politics, international relations, et cetera, et cetera. You are not limited to taking elective courses only within the research area that you've chosen at YCA. In fact, we strongly encourage you to take courses outside of your own research area to strengthen the interdisciplinarity of your developing master's thesis research topic, and just to take courses that you're interested in. So I am teaching in history and archaeology, the history of the field, sinology and China studies from a global perspective, and then a modern Chinese history course in the spring. The modern Chinese history course is probably going to be looking at late imperial and modern Chinese history through a retrospective of the writings of the recently deceased Jonathan D. Spence, the famous Yale professor. Very excited about that course. So a lot of good stuff for you if you're in history and archaeology, but you should certainly consider, if you're, say, looking at ancient or medieval Chinese history or intellectual history, you might want something like critical conceptions of Chinese thought, or Chinese classics in thought, or selected readings from the Confucian classics taught in Chinese. Perhaps you want to do a sort of blending of, literary history. So maybe you would want something about, comparative history between Chinese and American fiction. Or if you're looking at art history. So there's a lot for you to choose from in the humanities. And we'll look over at a little bit more of the social sciences here. So if you're interested in, say, diplomatic history, well, then you should really look into some of the courses that are offered in the broadly defined politics and international relations track. Once again, you're free to take whatever elective courses you want. We do encourage you, however, to work with your first-year faculty advisor and be strategic about what you think, what you choose. We hope it'll help build you into a better scholar and make you better prepared for conducting your master's thesis research in year 2. When we talk about master's thesis research, this is a good point for us to bring up within the Chinese higher education system, our very unique advisor system here at YCA. At the Yenching Academy, every Yenching scholar will have 2 academic advisors over the course of their 2 years here. Year 1, you have a faculty advisor. This professor is there to help introduce you to the academic life at Peking University, to help you think about what courses you should take, to learn about your developing research interests, and either directly guide you or perhaps point you in the direction or introduce you to professors that might be a better fit for a potential research mentor for you. They are your academic advisors for year 1, and you, through a process of mutual selection, you will choose your academic advisor within about the first month or so of your arrival in the fall semester of your first year. Now, some Yenching scholars, first year faculty advisor becomes their second year thesis advisor. But we don't think it's reasonable to require students within 1 month of being in our graduate program to really have a good grasp on who they want their thesis advisor to be. So we encourage it. If it works out, great that your first year advisor becomes your thesis advisor. That's wonderful, but it's not required. You will be determining your thesis advisor at the end of your first academic year in conjunction with the formal submission of your master's thesis research proposal. Here you can see the 24 schools and departments at Beida, from which we have selected Yenching Academy's thesis advisors. So under the guidance of faculty advisors and thesis advisors, here's just a few examples of some of the master's theses in recent years that have come out of the history and archaeology track. Sarah or Claudia, are either of your thesis topics on this slide? No? Well, we'll be sure to put at least one of yours on there next year. But you can get a sense of just the diversity of the kinds of, defined as history and archaeology research projects that you can conduct at YCA. We are quite open, very interdisciplinary, and under the guidance of leading faculty members at PKU, you can find a thesis topic that fascinates you and hopefully sets you up for the next step in your career, whether that be academic, whether it be going into private industry, government service, who knows, whatever it is that you want to achieve in the medium and long term in your career. Here are a couple of shots from the fall field study in Chengdu and Chongqing down in southwestern China. Of course, we're going to Chengdu, so you're going to see some pandas. That's, when we took students to Xi'an, you're going to go see the terracotta soldiers at the first emperor of the Qin dynasty's mausoleum. But it's not just, a tourist trip. We have guest lectures from leading experts, business leaders, and government officials in the region we're going to. We learn about ancient history, local culture, cuisine, as well as visiting cutting-edge high-tech industries, as well as looking at, say, new airports and major infrastructure projects that are being built in the region. It's generally about a 7-day trip. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting COVID control policies in China, we haven't been able to take all of our scholars on our trips recently. But this year, we're going to be doing 2 different trips, both to Chongqing and Chengdu, one in the fall and one in the spring. So as Yenching scholars are getting here, everyone will be able to experience the Chengdu and Chongqing trip. And also because it would just be a logistical nightmare for us to try to take 150, 160 students all on the same trip at the same time. In the field study portion of the spring semester, we also, COVID policies allowing, encourage our elective course professors to integrate learning outside of the classroom, learning outside of Beijing. So we have field studies that are part of individual elective courses. And you can just see here some of the courses that took students to different regions around the country in 2017 through 2019. And we've been putting a lot of effort into improving our career development and career services over the last several years. And I think we're seeing some really good results with this. We have, through the Student Affairs Office, we bring in a series of not only recruiters for job placement, but also mentors at different stages in their career. Here we see some younger professionals, including a couple of Yenching Academy graduates. We've also just implemented last year a professional advisor system where people who are perhaps interested in exploring certain fields, more so in China than outside of China, just for convenience and our networks of sort of connections to potential professional advisors. We have students grouped together with certain professional advisors. They have meetings, they can do some sort of shadowing at the office, et cetera. So we're building that up to try to set you up as best we can for the next steps in your career after YCA. And the next steps in the career after YCA has actually been, quite generally quite bright for Yenching scholars. As I mentioned, these are outstanding young people when they enter the program, and they go on to do even more outstanding things after they leave. About 20 to 25% of Yenching scholars over the last 7 intakes of students have gone on to further graduate study, generally at the doctoral level. You can see some of the top universities around the world where Yenching scholars have gone for further study. Then you can see some of the major international organizations, private companies, where consultancies, et cetera, where Yenching scholars have gone to start their careers after graduating from our program here. One of the most exciting and sort of flagship extracurricular activities at YCA in the first year is the Yenching Global Symposium, a large-scale, highly competitive China Studies conference generally for those in the early stages of their career. You can see the themes of the first 5 Yenching Global Symposia that we had beginning in 2016. And you can see here last year, or I guess it's still this year, the 2022 Yenching Global Symposium that was carried out online like the last 2 before it due to COVID. But we see globalization or globalization, internationalism in flux. This is a long weekend conference designed, organized, administered by Yenching scholars themselves. We support, our administrative staff supports them, but it is truly a student-run program, and it is very, very exciting and very, very rewarding. This is something that if you're interested in, I encourage you to look into potentially participating as a member of the executive committee, the student-run side of the Yenching Global Symposium. I'd like to give you a little bit of data on the Yenching scholars over the last 7 intakes. I'm not sure, I think we do have 2022 stats in here, so over the last 8 years. You can see we've had about 860 scholars from 84 different countries and regions. You can get a basic breakdown of our regional diversity here on this slide. Scholars in the first 8 cohorts of Yenching scholars have come from just under 350 universities. Here you can see the universities that have placed the highest number of graduates at the Yenching Academy. These are just the ones that have placed the most. We have many, many other universities. You know, you're obviously going to see that there's some fantastic world-renowned universities that have placed students, graduates here in the program with us. I do want to emphasize, however, you don't have to be from one of these so-called top universities to be a Yenching scholar. This is just the places that have placed the most number of graduates in our program over the first 8 years. In general, most Yenching scholars are recent or direct graduates from their bachelor's program or recent graduates from their bachelorette program. Although we do have a significant number who already have at least 1 master's degree before they come into the program. This is not a requirement, but we think that someone with a different master's degree can still bring a lot to our program. I also think it's really helpful to have, it's beneficial to have students with varying levels of career experience, with varying levels of educational experience, at a minimum though, finishing their bachelor's degree before they join the program, and various levels of China-related experience. We're a China Studies program, so we value those who have travel, study, work, language, academic experience related to China Studies, but it's not required. I think one of the most exciting things is having equally brilliant and accomplished young people reading the same books, listening to the same lectures, and participating in discussions about China. But it's really useful when they have different levels of experience with an engagement with China, personally perhaps, or academically as well. It seems to me that when you have that kind of mixture, sometimes you can learn as much from the different experiences and perspectives that your classmates and colleagues have. The research areas over the first, the first 7-8 years of YCA, politics, international relations, and economics and management have been, strong number 1 and 2. Law and society, although last year law and society surpassed economics and management in total numbers, is generally a strong number 3. And then the humanities come in with about, 15-20%. But, it's important to state that we don't privilege one research area over another. This is not the quota or the breakdown of research areas that we're looking for. This is simply what the best candidates in each year have chosen to focus on when they come here. In 2022, we have 111 scholars from 27 countries and region. You can see a little bit of our geographical breakdown here. You can get a sense of the schools that place the highest number of graduates in our program in the 8th cohort, the 2022 Yenching scholars. So for the last section here, in just a few more minutes, I'd like to tell you a little bit of some strategies about the application process. So what are we looking for? Well, we are a highly competitive, fully funded graduate program at China's top university. And so we absolutely and obviously value outstanding academic records. So, you need to be strong in the classroom to be a competitive applicant to YCA. But we are not only looking for your GPA and your in-class performance. If you have extracurricular activities that are important to you, that have defined some of your educational experience or your life experience. Are you a musician, an athlete, an artist? Do you have a startup company? Are you committed to community and public service, to social justice? If this is something that's really important about who you are, we want to know that. And we want to, see as much as we can about who you are, because you're not just going to be here as a student. You're going to be here as a member of our community. And we want to see and value the ways that you can contribute to our international academic community in ways outside of the classroom. We really value students who have experience with and a deep-seated commitment to cultural diversity. We do value students who have experience academically, personally, what have you, connected to China. You don't have to be a China studies major in undergrad or already have an East Asian languages and literatures master's degree to get into the program. But if that is your academic profile, well then show us, tell us that. It can be a competitive advantage, but it's not a requirement. And just like any job you apply to, any grad school you apply to, we want to be able to see, it needs to make sense to us why you're choosing YCA and why you think you can contribute to YCA. And English proficiency is required. So we have essentially, a 2-part, maybe 2.5-part application process based on the region where you're from. So if you are from the Chinese mainland, unfortunately, the only way that mainland Chinese can apply to the Yenching Academy is through what's known as Tuimian, the exemption from the National Postgraduate Entrance Examination. And so that means you have to have attended university in mainland China and through academic performance qualified for direct admission into a graduate program without essentially the China's version of the GRE. For international applicants and those from the regions of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, you will apply through our Yenching Academy application portal. If you are from the regions of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, you also have another step. That's applying through a different Peking University application system. If that applies to you, please go to our website and look at the details. If you are from Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan, you must complete both of these applications or you cannot be considered for admission. The minimum requirement is completing your bachelor's degree before you enroll with us. Essentially, you can't be a graduate student unless you can prove you've already finished your bachelor's. And if you are an applicant a student or an alumnus of one of our partner universities, you will need to apply to your partner university first. Please refer to our website about the list of partner universities. The applications are already open. We're closing applications about a week or so earlier than we have the last couple of years. That's because the Lunar New Year is a little bit earlier than normal, and so the entire fall semester is wrapping up earlier in January than it normally would. You will need to complete the online application at the website you see there. If you are a non-native English speaker, we need a certificate of English proficiency within the last 2 years, one of the standard proficiency tests, IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, etc. We will need diplomas from all institutions of higher education from which you have graduated, and or a certificate of enrollment. Now, don't worry about that. We know that a lot of you will be applying, say, in your 4th year of university, or you're still working on another master's program. A certificate of enrollment is okay if you have not yet graduated, but by the time you enroll, we will need your actual hard copy of the diploma. We need transcripts from any bachelor's or master's programs you've attended, 2 essays, a personal statement in English, max 750 words, and a statement of research interest, maximum 1,500 words, excluding citations, your resume, CV, and this is important. We need 2 letters of recommendation, and they must be academic letters of recommendation, and they must be from associate professor or full professor level or higher. Now, we know there are different university systems around the world. We have details on the website about what the corresponding level is. If you have any questions about that, let us know. So here's our social media presence. If you have any questions, reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. Please check out our website, yenchingacademy.pku.edu.cn for English, or yenching.pku.edu.cn for Chinese. You can find us on WeChat at Peking Daxue Yenching Xuetang, Facebook and Instagram at Yenching Academy. Really go to the website, do your research, learn about the structure of our program, and take that knowledge gained and use it to help you write a better application package. I also really recommend looking at the profiles of current Yenching scholars. You'll get a sense of the diversity of backgrounds, academic, regional, cultural, and the interesting things that Yenching scholars are doing once they join the program. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I appreciate your time and focus. Thank you very much. And now I would like to go ahead and turn the floor over to one of our 2 Yenching scholars. Sarah, would you go first?
Sure, yeah, I can go first. So as Professor Haas said, I'm Sarah Brooker. I am from the US, and I graduated from NYU Shanghai in 2021 with a degree in Global China Studies and minors in art history with a focus on non-Western art and Chinese language. I did quite a few extracurriculars in undergrad, including Quiz Bowl, orchestra, and the Thespian Society, and those have translated really well into my Yenching Academy curriculars. For my undergraduate degree, in terms of academics, I took a really wide range of courses related to China, as well as other locations within Asia and just kind of the world in general. And my undergraduate thesis was specifically focusing on seals in China, from the Song and Ming dynasties, focusing more on Taoist and government seals, which is a very strange topic. It's not a very popular topic that people do, but it was definitely an interesting topic for me, and something that's been very useful in terms of doing my graduate research as well. Within Yenching Academy, for my extracurriculars, I was a banzhang, so kind of a class representative, organized a lot of activities. I did some work with pandemic control, and just kind of general organization within the student body. And then I was also a member of the PKU Symphonic Orchestra. Now, my Chinese at the time, I didn't know any musical Chinese at all, but I was still able to play in the orchestra So there really wasn't any issues in terms of language. You can still join the clubs here, no problem. And then this year, I'm also working as a TA and then a residential advisor. So for these sorts of things, my previous background in kind of organizing class activities and doing things like Quiz Bowl and my personal interests in class have all kind of had a hand in deciding what extracurriculars I do. Now, if you're the kind that wants to organize activities and that sort of thing, there's plenty of options. If you're more as a person that likes to participate but doesn't want to organize, there's also plenty of options for you to do things here as well. In terms of my panel and workshop experience, in undergrad, I did a workshop called Gateway to Traditional Chinese Monuments, Data Curation and Web Development for Cultural Heritage Preservation Immersion Workshop, which is a really long name to say. Basically, I worked with Architectura Sinica to do a translation project for architectural terms from classical Chinese into English. This sort of workshop experience was very, very helpful. But if you don't have workshop experience, you don't have publications or anything like that, that's totally fine as well. Since joining Yenching Academy, I was part of a forum on Gen Z Sino-American youth relations. And then I also did a panel discussion with CGTN Radio on Nixon's 50th anniversary, like the 50th anniversary of his visit to China as well. So my history background was helpful for that. And these are just some of the kinds of opportunities that would be available perhaps outside of YCA that you might be able to take advantage of some of the research that you've done to kind of reach out and branch out. I'm not really one for sort of international relations, but I was still able to do these workshops and these panels. And then the last one that's a bit more relevant and something that I did this past summer was the joint workshop on cultural heritage conservation. So this was a workshop in Fuzhou talking about the World Heritage status of the site. They're currently applying for World Heritage status. And so my job was at the beginning of the workshop, I gave a lecture on comparing Fuzhou's World Heritage with some of the other cities that have been accepted onto the World Heritage list, and some of the things that Fuzhou might be able to look at as kind of putting on their application to be a bit more successful. And then during the 10 days while we were in Fuzhou, I got to do a lot of really great fieldwork experience that has kind of been paused because of COVID. I was still luckily able to go and do interviews, do archival research, do site visits, really look at the architecture and then the people there as well. Like we did an interview with some of the heads from the culture department within one of the sites that we were visiting. So this is something that I was invited to by my thesis advisor, who is part of the PKU Archaeology and Museology department, and then part of WITRAP, which is a really, really long name, and I don't remember the full thing, my apologies. But basically my thesis advisor was able to help me get these sorts of experiences. So that's something that you might be able to look forward to depending on who your thesis or faculty advisors are. So some of my motivations for applying for YCA, from my university, several other students had already applied and been accepted to YCA, and they had all been quite successful in what they were doing. They came from kind of economics and management. I think one of them did history and archaeology. They had come from my major or a similar major, and they were all very successful at YCA. And so that was kind of one of my motivations in applying. It seemed like, if they were successful, I could be successful too at YCA. And then for my research specifically, I focus a lot on art history and the interactions between art and writing. And so being in China specifically was really, really critically important for my research. And so being at YCA has allowed me to kind of stay in China since I already did my undergrad in Shanghai. As a Yenching scholar, I'd say that I had a very smooth transition from my undergrad into YCA. The program that I did as an undergrad was a little bit unique. It's very, very similar to YCA in that it's a very international program. It's very interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, and it's also focused on China studies. But I know that for a lot of my classmates who maybe went to more traditionally structured universities or had a very typical, like, I'm an economics major with no background in China studies, they also had very smooth transitions into YCA. Here, I've had some very fantastic professors and classmates. I did 2 history electives, 2 philosophy and religion electives, and then 3 electives in the literature and culture track. So there's a really wide range of things that you can do. When I was coming here, I was very unfamiliar with literature. So I took 2 literature courses in order to kind of make up for that. And the professors have been really great with helping out since I was so unfamiliar with literature, but I was still able to do it, no problem. And then if you're somebody who's still learning Chinese or you haven't started learning Chinese at all, being in PKU, being in YCA and kind of the Chinese immersive environment is going to be really good for your Chinese language skills. I know for myself, my Chinese has improved quite drastically since moving into Beijing, since most people here kind of insist that you speak in Chinese, whereas in Shanghai, a lot of kind of the locals also speak English. So it wasn't quite as hard, but here there's definitely more of an immersive environment that you might be looking for. So some suggestions for prospective students: don't be afraid to show your passion for China studies. If anything, please show your passion for China studies. We really want to see it. And something that I did was to use my CV, personal statement, and research statement to kind of talk about different aspects of myself, but definitely keeping a common thread to bring them all together. You don't want to be too repetitive in all of the things that you're talking about. So if you're using them to kind of show different aspects of yourself, they'll get a fuller picture of who you are. Some other things to think about: what do you want from YCA? Is there something specific that you're looking for from YCA, or do you just want the full experience? Tell us what you want. Do you have kind of an idea of what you want to study, or are you just still kind of exploring? When you're writing your research statement, don't feel like you have to do that when you get here. My research statement, I already had a really good idea of what I wanted to do for my thesis. I already had research done. I had an outline made. I was ready to go. And then my thesis advisor was like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing something else. So don't be afraid of the topic changing. What are your strengths and kind of what skills do you want to develop? So like I said, I wasn't very well versed in literature, but I was able to kind of make up for that deficit by taking classes here. And then, if you do change your mind on what you want to study, or you think maybe that there's someone here who's not, if you've already looked at maybe who the advisors might be, if you're afraid that there's somebody who's not kind of within your field, don't worry. There will definitely be someone who can help you. So for my thesis topic, I'm currently working on heritage reproduction, Qianlong stone drums under political and spatial context, which is way out of what I had originally wanted to do when I got here. It's still related to epigraphy and kind of language and or writing and art, but it's definitely different from what I had originally proposed in terms of doing seals. And through this thesis project, I've been able to go do site visits. I've been working with a professor who also has kind of a study group with all of his graduate students. So I'm getting a really good sense for, how do people do archaeology research, which is something that I have no experience in at all. So being here, I've been able to kind of really have that international dialogue. I talk a lot with Claudia about some of the research topics that I'm doing, and also, having a very full campus experience, getting every kind of aspect that I am looking for, but also that I think will improve myself in the future. So that's kind of what I had prepared. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So I would like to echo a couple of the points you made there. The advice about, while keeping the thread, the sort of connection between them, using your personal statement, your statement of research interest, and your CV to emphasize different parts of your experience and personality is great advice. This isn't just YCA, but for any grad school application or, really any job application also, it's never a good thing if your personal statement simply repeats what's on your CV or your resume. So I think that's a really good thing, a good bit of advice there. And I think the fact that there are students here who maybe were sociologists or were trained in economics or consulting or psychology, maybe didn't have the background in China studies, we still want students like that. And this is, YCA is the perfect kind of institution to, so let's say you've already developed some good expertise in one field. Maybe you have some work experience in that field, but you realize that to get where you want to go in your career, you need to be at least China conversant. You need to know about perhaps the Chinese market or the Chinese political system or Chinese diplomacy to take the next step in your career. A master's at YCA and at Peking University is really the ideal institution for someone to increase their knowledge about China and be able to apply their knowledge from another field or another professional experience to what they learn at Peking University and at YCA.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Claudia. I am Sarah's friend. We are in the same cohort. I'm a 2021 cohort Yenching scholar as well. So I was born and raised in New Jersey in the US, and I studied at Brown University. I double majored in applied math economics and in history with a focus in East Asia. So at Brown, had a lot of extracurriculars, but I think the most time consuming and the one that I've always mentioned is my Division I athletic experience. I was on the Brown fencing team, women's saber, and I was squad captain. So kind of my journey to Yenching is quite different, I feel like. So I'll mention it a little bit briefly. I graduated Brown in 2019. And the summer of 2018, I had gone to Wall Street to intern. And I realized that it wasn't really for me, had quite a lot of existential crisis, if you will. And I had the opportunity to work in Beijing afterwards. So I took it so I could spend some more time with my relatives who are still in China. And then while I was in Beijing, I actually heard about Yenching. And I feel like, as I've mentioned, I grew up in the US, so I've never really been able to study Chinese history from a Chinese perspective. So that was something that I was very much was looking forward to kind of fixing. So I applied to Yenching and was very lucky to get in. All right, cool. So a little bit about my Yenching experience academic-wise. I found that the courses are very, very interesting, and it's a very engaging curriculum. It's truly, truly, I feel, interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. We have access to Peking U-wide courses. I know Professor Haas has already talked about this, so I won't, keep mentioning it, but my own research topic is probably going to be in fashion and Chinese history. Specifically, I will probably be looking at headpieces and hair design. And probably I will be looking at it from three different lenses. I will be looking at it in literature, in art, and then hopefully, given the current, depending on COVID, be able to actually go look at artifacts. This was actually decided between me and my faculty advisor, Professor Liu, who was really awesome. He challenged me to kind of get out of my comfort zone. I'm very much more used to just talking, researching literature, things that I could have in my hands. But I think that, expanding into art history and being able to go study artifacts as primary sources, that will be really, really helpful as a historian. Extracurriculars, Professor Haas mentioned the Yenching Global Symposium. I was co-chair of the 2022 Yenching Global Symposium. Loved it, was very, very exciting. I think if anyone is interested, maybe, feel free to come join us if you're so lucky to get here. I think it's a great representation of Yenching in that it is a truly global conference, and we really do look at a diverse sort of set of opinions and worldviews. And obviously I come from a very American-centric kind of education background, so to be able to be in dialogue with scholars around the world, both at Yenching and at the Global Symposium, it really opened my eyes, and I think that I am better able to speak to and understand what is going on in the current world. I'm also a fencer, shocking, here at on the Peking University team. It's a great way to meet undergrads and other students who are on campus who are not in our program. Then also, yeah, I'm also taking singing lessons, so I decided to put that up there. The Yenching experience for me, socially and professionally, I absolutely love the people of Yenching. I think, you know, when you talk to any Yenching scholar, everyone is going to mention the amazing people, which sound cliche, which does sound a little bit cliche, but I mean, it's very, very true. It's a diverse set of voices, but then everyone is able to come together and really speak to a lot of the things that are happening in the world. And I think that these are the conversations that really truly make a difference. And again, because of the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary kind of nature of the program, you're able to really go talk across disciplines and across countries to kind of understand the problem and perhaps think about solutions. Of course, also being in Beijing is awesome as a historian. You know, I think it's one thing to be able to take out a library book about the Forbidden City and look at all of the stuff, and it's a whole other thing to like literally walk up to the walls and look up at the roof beasts and understand what they represent. So traveling around Beijing is fantastic. Traveling around China, I feel like as a student, it's a great opportunity. And being at Yenching really does place you in a position where you can do a lot of that. And so currently I'm at a research center for my internship. It's Brooker Research Center, focusing on philosophy and like kind of interdisciplinary dialogues between philosophy and other areas of study. And I have had a lot of fun. I feel like I applied all of the skills that I got from the Yenching Global Symposium right into my new job. So there's a direct kind of line of just being able to use my professional skills there. And then I think it's, I think that the school has been very, very good in terms of offering us various sorts of opportunities to get internships, even as like international students, which is, I think, fantastic and a little harder to do in China, just if you are not at an institution like Peking U. All right, so finally, why should you apply? You should apply because we're all fantastic people here. But I think there are a couple of other reasons, right? Why China? Obviously, China is a growing power in a world that is slowly becoming the global rules are being rewritten. I think that it's very important to be in a place that is very relevant. I think that China is very misunderstood in a lot of ways. And I think as long as we can open more dialogue and have the world understand China better, that the world as a whole will become better. Obviously, Yenching Academy and Peking University has a long history and legacy within itself. I think that Peking University's resources definitely the best in China, especially if you want to study history and archaeology. So, and the humanities, and also of course social sciences, but I'm a little bit biased. And then, yeah, I think in the same vein as Sarah and Professor Haas, definitely reach out to, try to explore our website, reach out to scholars who you might know from your universities. I think, follow our social media accounts to learn more about the program. And I think that in the end, if you do choose to apply and if you do get in, it is really, really worth the experience.
Okay, Sarah, Claudia, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy, but we really appreciate you taking the time to help with this. I always think it's helpful to see, to have Yenching scholars talk to potential applicants. Well, to all of you who joined, we appreciate your interest and your attention. Please reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. If you have any other questions, reach out to any Yenching scholars that might have graduated from your schools. You can always look on LinkedIn. We're not going to share, out of privacy concerns, we're not going to directly share anyone's contact information, but that doesn't mean you can't shoot someone a LinkedIn message and see if they'd be happy to chat with you. Most cases, I think they are. But if you have any other questions, you can feel free to join us for our other online information sessions. We have a schedule up online. We have 5 more open info sessions focusing on one of the research areas. And then we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 open info sessions that are sort of designed for different regions, applicants for different regions and different time zones. So check our website for those schedules as well. We appreciate you joining us. Hope to see your applications coming up before November 27th, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Claudia. Have a great evening, and we will see some of you online soon.